Welcome to the Burnout, where we help teachers and education professionals recharge their purpose, revise their passion, and regain their power. The show where we tackle the problems in education, one solution at a time. I'm your host, Kendria Johnson, and we look forward to helping you beat the burnout.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us for the Burnout Podcast. I am your host, Kendria Johnson. I am your teacher coach. I make good teachers great by bringing them out of burnout back into a balanced life. And today on my show, I have the wonderful, the very funny and witty, actually. He's very funny. Reneau Purifoy, is that right?
Purify.
Purifoy.
Right.
Thank you so much for correcting me. But Reneau, I have that right, correct?
Right.
Yes. I met this young man last week, and I was very impressed with his resume. He is an author. He is a former teacher, a former educator. He's also taught abroad, like me, and now he's written a book about anxiety, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about that today. So, Reneau, I'm going to hand the mic over to you. I want to know from you, what do you think is one of the biggest problems in education? Some of the things that we're facing in education. What do you think is one of the big problems?
Well, there's a lot of them. Of course, I'm in the U.S. right now, but even when I was in Japan teaching, you have that pressure of expectations from your administration. You've got cultural stuff going on that you're fighting. But I think since your program's about burnout, one of the things that I find that's really important is just the expectations that teachers have of themselves. Sometimes that's one of the biggest things that causes them to have problems. I have a concept that I often talk about. Your body is a machine with a limited supply of energy. And, people often act as if, well, I can just keep pushing my body as much as I want to. We see movies, the guy's been shot, he's been thrown out of an airplane, he's been run over by a truck, and he's still moving along, right?
Yeah.
In real life, that's not the way it is.
I agree.
Our bodies have limitations. In fact, one of the things I often will teach when I do stress management stuff is a stress inventory, kind of being aware of what are your signs of stress, because a lot of times people are just they're not aware of when stress is starting to get to them. Things, and of course there's the physical stuff, headaches, things of that nature. There's relationship stuff, which sometimes we don't recognize, start getting a little bit crabby.
I can relate.
My father was a sailor, and sometimes there's a change in how I use language, right? So that's one of my indicators. Or behavioral stuff. Sometimes if I know in times when I've been real stressed out, I'll sit in the computer and I'm just playing some mindless little game or something. The spiritual stuff, sometimes just the things that give meaning to our life seem empty, and these are all things that are just indicators that stress is starting to get to you, and you need to pay attention to them. In fact, everybody has their own specific stuff. Some people it's physical, some people it's relational, some people it's mental. You get that fog going on. You're just not able to think about things as clearly. And the sooner you tune into that, then the more effective you're going to be. Unfortunately, a lot of people, especially with burnout, they don't realize they're burned out until they're flat on their back. They're having major physical or relational or other things going on. So tune into that stuff early, and that becomes really important. Another concept that I find that's really important is just one of the sources of stress that you have the most control over is the internal stuff. A lot of times you can't do a whole lot about your administration. You can't do about the cultural stuff. But your expectations, what do I expect to achieve? And one concept I find that's useful is a concept called triage. When there's a big accident or warfare or something of that nature, as casualties come in, you put them into three groups. Those people that are going to be okay, whether you get to them right now or not, those people that you're not going to be able to save, and those people that are on the fence. And while you want to deal with all of those groups, you want to put your most energy on those people on the fence and recognize that you can't save everybody. That where do I put my energy where it's going to be most effective? And some people have the expectation, I can do it all for everybody. And that's not the case.
True.
Another thing that I was told by an older teacher when I first started is that, You're going to walk into the room and you got a bunch of students, and
Yeah.
there's going to be a few of those students that's just going to rub you the wrong way.
Yes.
It's because their personality reminds you of somebody you don't like, or
Yes.
whatever. You know,
Yes.
and those are the people you're going to have to maybe spend a little more time with, and just really think about more. Because again, they're just going to rub you the wrong way.
And they
So
come
the
every day, Mr. Reneau. They come every day. They don't miss a day.
yeah, I know they never get sick. But I think that's important, and then
Yeah.
just to have realistic expectations again of who I am and what can I accomplish.
Mhm.
And then I think there's another concept that I use a lot, which is called time block management.
Yeah.
And people ask me, well, how do you write a book? Well, I set aside an hour or two, every day or every other day, and I write for that hour, and then I move on to other stuff.
Mhm.
My goal is not to accomplish the whole chapter at that time. It's just to
Mhm.
get as much as I get done that period of time. And people will sometimes, I think, start doing too much, and they say yes to everything, and
Yes.
they don't respect their limits. You know, you can only do so much. You have to have balance in your life.
I
And
agree.
that gets into some of the long-term stress management strategies. Is you have to have balance. Human beings are relational. We need relationship. And if you don't spend time cultivating those relationships outside of school,
Yes.
within your family, or if you're single, within your circle of friendships, and having some people you can go and spend time with, because that ability to unwind is so important. In fact,
Mhm.
this might be a good time to maybe talk about what is stress.
Yeah.
People oftentimes talk about stress, but they never define it, right?
Right. 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 Right.
And stress
So,
is, and the simplest definition is the triggering of your fight or flight response.
okay.
So in your body, you have your nervous system has its normal, what they call the sympathetic, or excuse me, the parasympathetic division, which
Hmm.
controls your breathing, your heart rate, and all that. Then you have the sympathetic, which is really not too sympathetic.
Yeah.
That's how I keep it straight, right? But that's
Okay.
the fight or flight response, and that's what
Okay.
triggers, your heartbeats. It gets you ready to fight or run away. And
Okay.
whenever you feel threatened, or you have
Hmm.
a strong emotion, or you experience a loss, and it can be
Hmm.
positive stuff too,
Yeah.
that kicks in. And when that kicks in, that turns off all of the normal functioning.
Yeah.
So your digestive system gets dampened, your breathing goes up,
Hmm.
heartbeat, muscle tension, all that type
Yep.
of stuff.
I know all of
But
it.
it also dampens your immune system.
Yeah.
That's why people who are very stressed out, or going through a very stressful time in their life, will get sick more.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, and so you need to have something where you turn that off. And that's why things like a decompression routine,
Hmm.
when you come home, have some time to go play with a dog, play with the kids, take a walk, do something that takes you out of fight or flight mode. That allows your normal healing processes to start to kick in again.
Yeah.
And that's something a lot of people don't do. They just plunge from one activity into another, and they're always go, 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 or they're busy grading, or they're busy thinking about stuff. And so they never give their body a chance to relax and to heal itself. And that is just so, so important.
I agree. I agree with everything that you've said. Basically, I've written a book about what you've already researched, if that makes sense. I could have been a great case study for you.
Mm.
So before we wrap up today, Mr. Reneau, I want to know what your book is about, first off. I'm very interested in your book, fascinated. Matter of fact, I know for a fact that I'm going to get a copy of this book. So my listeners, please make sure you get a copy of this book, because, interesting things that you've said about mind time blocking and stress management and how it affects our physical body. And it's not, just, coming home and doing a breathing exercise in just one time. It's more than that, right?
Mm.
Tell us about your
You
book.
have you have to structure
And
it.
yes, and then tell us about where people can contact you. Make sure that you throw that plug in there about where they can get that book, and tell us about
Right.
what the book is about before
Right.
we close.
Well, the book has four sections. I start off talking about what are emotions, because a lot of people don't really, in fact, most people don't really understand what they are, how they work, why we have them.
Yes.
Use that as kind of the foundation to go
Hmm.
into triggers that you get,
Hmm.
some of the core negative response patterns, and then the things that make a person happy, what they call the science of happiness, the three
Yes.
key areas of happiness. And one of the things about my book that I think people really like is at the end of each chapter, I have a summary of key concepts. Then I have a series of exercises or activities that you can do. So you can take the activities and apply them. I mean, I was a clinician for 20 years, and
Hmm.
my whole focus is how do you get people to change? And so
Yeah.
my pet peeve for a lot of books is they give you a lot of insight,
Yeah.
but they don't tell you what do I do with this insight? Because insight is useful, but it doesn't change behavior, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so if people want to know more about me or about what I do, my website is whyemotions.com. So whyemotions.com.
Mhm.
And the book's available up on Amazon, and audio will be out probably later on this month. They had a little bit of delay on getting that produced, but the books are available today. So yeah.
Oh, I cannot wait. I can't wait. And I want everyone who is, associated with me to know that these are the kind of people I enjoy talking to because they can relate. When I was going through my burnout, I'm going to tell you this quick story and then we're going to wrap up. When I was going through my burnout, I talked to my friends, but they
Yeah.
were burnt out too. They just
Right.
didn't know it, and we didn't have the language of that. I just know I was
Yeah.
stressed all the time, sick all the time, tired all the time. That's all I knew.
Yeah. Yeah.
And talking to them, they couldn't help me. But if I had talked to someone like you just gave me all of the, the clinical terms. You gave me the psychological terms. You gave me the physical terms of what was going on with me. And now I know I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
you've written it in a book. And so now
Yeah.
I know that this is going to help someone. Is there anything else, like any last pieces of wisdom you want to share with the audience before we close?
Well, it's a big topic, but I
Yeah.
think the self-care is important. And one of the things you said is everybody you knew was burned out. So
Yes.
having some people that are maybe doing something different so that when you get together with your friends, it's just not a complaint session, right?
Yes.
So
That is so true, so true. Well, I thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you coming on. I look forward to everyone seeing this and to being a part of a different conversation. The goal of this podcast is to become a part of a different conversation, and that's going to do it for us this evening. Thank you so much for joining me. Remember, my name is Kendria Johnson, and I help teachers recharge their purpose, redefine their passion, and regain their power. Until next time, thank you so much for joining us.